to have two guys that would start at most places. And we have two really good quarterbacks, and the best players going to play. And I would say they're both really improved.
All right, welcome in on this Monday. Dennis Fithian with you here on the Maize and Blue Reviews, Michigan football today. It's great to be with you. Hope you had a great weekend. I did, and I'm ready to go on this Monday. It is. It doesn't feel like football weather. It feels like, I don't know, swampy Everglade type weather outside. My dog, who's part German Shepherd, he didn't want anything to do with it today. But with practice being underway and nuggets being served up on Maize and Blue Review about said practices, that, gets you going a little bit on August the 8th. And, it's just going to be a matter of time now before it's feeling a little crisper in the morning. And we're eyeballing September, and we are really talking about football. I remember, and I got a lot to get to today. That was Matt Weiss, by the way, Michigan's co-offensive coordinator. I'm going to talk about him a little bit today and some things that he had to say over the weekend. He was discussing the Michigan quarterbacks. He's the quarterback coach and co-offensive coordinator, and the guy likely that's going to be calling the plays, something that we're going to be discussed coming up. So what was my point? Oh, my point was I can remember when I was young and I didn't mind going to school, but it's not like I was looking forward to going back to school anywhere, grade school, junior high, high school, college. I wasn't looking forward to it. And then I liked the first day. And then after that, not so much. But the thing that always helped me growing up of the not anticipation of going to school, I guess the disappointment of having to go back to school, was the excitement of football happening. And it, as sad as I might get, as I couldn't just hang out with my friends and had no worries in the summer and let's just let it fly. And then here comes school, the disappointment. Football would balance it out. And that still happens in these days, all the way. Now it's still happening. So, that's good. I'm already looking. If you're somebody that's just joining us, by the way, we're here live weekdays at 1:00 talking about the latest in Michigan sports. And we take your feedback as it comes in. So if you're out there, somebody that likes to discuss Michigan football and you want to jump in and get your thoughts and questions, you go ahead, throw them up there, and we will address them as they come through. Paul's on Clubhouse. I can already see him in there waving and leaving a message. I can't put those messages on Clubhouse. I haven't figured that out yet, how to put them up on the screen, but it's all good. And we got a lot to talk about. And it's really been a summer of a lot to talk about, but we do have lots to talk about coming out of camp. We've got some news, and I'm going to stress this a few times, but you want to know what's going on in Michigan football camp, recruiting, basketball, you should be with us all at Maize and Blue Review. Go to michigan.rivals.com and sign up. I mean, you will be up to speed. I will scratch the surface, and I'll even pull the surface off and dive in a little bit. But you want to know everything that's going on with Michigan, come join us there at the Maize and Blue Review. It is a lot of fun. But what we're talking about today, we have a video of a bomb to Roman Wilson that we are going to show. We also have some comments from the co-offensive coordinators who both talked to the media this week. Matt Weiss, just this weekend, yesterday, as a matter of fact, Sherrone Moore, what they had to say. I pulled out the most important things, and we'll talk about those. We will also talk about practice. And talking about practice, that's what we have to talk about right now. We don't have the games. We have talked about the games, but we are going to talk about practice. But before we talk about practice, we have breaking news. And for that breaking news, let's get to it. We have the coaches poll that has just been released. You know, you have the coaches poll, and then you have the media poll, and they can differ a little bit, but they also have a lot of similarities. And the coaches poll has just been released within the last hour. So let's get to it and see where Michigan and other Big Ten teams are ranked. Let's see where Alabama's ranked. I'm pretty sure I know where Alabama is ranked. And there they are. Alabama. They got 54 first place votes. And they're the Buckeyes at number 2, 5 first place votes. Georgia, who won it all last year, lose a lot on defense. They're at 6. So you got 65 coaches that are voting. Maybe there's another first place vote down the line. 54%, an overwhelming majority voting for Alabama. And that's how I would vote the first 3. I put Michigan at 4. I moved them in front of Clemson, although Clemson's got a great defense coming back. But I like Michigan's quarterback situation better. I like Michigan's quarterback situation better than Notre Dame, which I have Michigan in front of. So I disagree. I had Michigan a little bit higher in my own poll. I disagree with the coaches, but let's see. There's Notre Dame at number 5. Michigan at 6. Now, how about that? With 1,232 votes, pretty close to Notre Dame. So if they had that college football playoff revealed like they do on, what is that, Tuesdays that they come out with that thing? The BCS standings, is that what they call it? I think so. The college football playoff standings, bowl championship series standings. You would have those 4, and then you'd have Notre Dame and Michigan there. And let's just round out the rest of them, see if there's anything of note. I like that Utah team. I know where they're coming from. Texas A&M. I know Texas A&M's always up there, and then they did beat Alabama last year. Sooners in the top 10. So's Baylor. Oklahoma State. Their coach has got to be over 50 now. He's totally a man. Oregon showing up for the whatever it is, Pac-12, Pac-14, back to Pac-12, hoping that it's not going to go down to Pac-10. NC State, Michigan State at number 14. So there's the Spartans cracking the top 15. USC, Lincoln Riley, Pitt. I'm sure Pat Narduzzi is like, I wish I was in the SEC West. I would win all of the games. That's what he was on about the offseason when he was on with that car dealership, and he was letting it fly a little bit. The U. Texas is back in the top 25. Let's go. Wake, high-scoring offense. Whiskey. Michigan doesn't have to play Whiskey this year. Kentucky, Cincy. The Hogs. The Hogs seem like they have been taking advantage of name, image, and likeness. I think the Hogs could have a good year. There's Lane Kiffin. He'll like that he's in the top 24. And Houston. Let's see if there's any other teams that are receiving votes that we would find of interest. Yeah, I was of interest. That's Michigan's first road game. Michigan plays Penn State this year because they're in the Big Ten East. They would be ranked number 26 and 27, talking about Iowa and Penn State. Other teams of interest, Florida, you could say they'd be of interest. Minnesota, they're in the also receiving votes. Purdue had a pair of also receiving votes. And that is it. So there it is. Michigan at number 5 in the, well, I'm going to have to take my little picture out of that if we're going to see it. Michigan at 5. Before we tell you what we're going to talk about, let's just take some of the feedback that has come in right out of the gate here. Matt Weiss in that press briefing said that he hinted at JJ could start, but didn't actually say it, didn't give any hint of when. A lot of blah, blah, blah. We'll get to some of that blah, 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 Blue. One thing that yours truly has, and I appreciate people that, have podcast, VCast, get on, YouTube stars, all those kind of things. One thing I know I've got a couple areas of expertise. One is coach decoding. After 25 years, now almost 30 years of sitting through millions of press conferences with coaches and managers and sitting in their offices and sitting in all these different places. And I know what they're actually saying, and I'll be able to decode that. I am also pretty good at being able to put things in context. So sometimes when I say, hey, this guy's really playing well, as it pertains to just the first week of practice, there'll be people like, oh, don't get ahead of yourself. You don't have to worry. I'm not going to get ahead of myself. I'm going to say it how it actually is. Perspective is something that I've been able to gain over the years. Antoine, weighing in out of the gate, also says he thinks Michigan should be higher. He'd flip Ohio and Michigan. He'd have Michigan at number 2. That's even higher than me, Antoine. But let the disrespect continue. Michigan does better when everybody doubts them. I'd like to have the chip on their shoulder. Yeah, well, when you're okay, Antoine, I like it. I like that you think Michigan should be number 2. They did make the college football playoff last year, and so and I like the team as well. And they did beat Ohio State. It's not always. I mean, if it was just how you did last year, then you'd automatically just put Georgia up at number 1. You combine, hey, what did they do last year? And what kind of team do they have this year? You could put the schedule in there if they had like a murderer's row. And even though they had a really good team coming back, you're saying, I just don't know how they're going to finish in the top 4. That can drop them down. Meanwhile, coaches are total, they're good at what they do. What they are not good at is putting together top 25 polls. They send it over to their sports information director and they have them fill it out. And they put total biases in there. Oh, I like this coach. He's part of my tree, or he's part of the league. Oh, I want to fatten this team up a little bit because we're playing them. So, the coaches, and you go all the way back to '97 when they gave the gift of Tom Osborne of a half national championship when they hadn't done all that before. Hey, he was undefeated. That's for another summertime show. We're into the meat of things here in August. We don't have to replay that old bit, but let's get some other feedback. Antoine feeling disrespected because of the poll. Malachi says he wants to know what Weiss is a football head. His X's and O's are going to be good, awkward. Coaches are always best at X's, XOS. I know football is a football head and his X's and O's. Okay, X's and O's. I think you have an apostrophe there. Sometimes it takes me a second. I thought maybe you're running some kind of, game code or computer code on me. I don't know. We'll see. Now, instead of recruiting, he's probably the X and O guy, while Sherrone is the recruiter. Well, you're getting to it, and it's what I am going to be talking about. So let's get that screen up there so we can tell you what we are going to talk about. Like we said, we got a video that we're going to show you. We're going to get to those co-offensive coordinators, but we are starting with what's going on in practice. We're talking about practice, not the games, practice. And the indication is, when did they start? Wednesday. Is that the quarterback battle right now? You've can go in depth if you went on Maize and Blue Review, but here's the Reader's Digest for us to talk about right now. The two quarterbacks are splitting the reps even, 50-50 with the first team. This is coming down. The more you think about it, the more you discuss it, is choose your weapon. If you go back to the video games, they allow you sometimes, you can take the machine gun, you can go in there, you can go in and, you can take the, the lightsaber, whatever, the different type of weapons that you can decide. It was like Braveheart. I watched Braveheart for probably the 5th time in my life last week. And, when they're out there on the field and Mel Gibson's like, who's with me? And you look at all the Scotsmen behind you and, some of them have spears and some of them have, the big hammer and, yet others, favor the little knives, to get in there a little quicker. I think I would go with the King Arthur type sword myself if I could swing it. But Michigan, and if you're a fan, you have to decide what weapon you want. Do you want the weapon of a QB who has been there, a QB that has a championship ring on his finger, a quarterback with those 12 starts, 13 starts, 14 starts in last year, including the college football playoff game and the Big Ten championship game? He's got that under his belt, knows the playbook front and back, knows where everybody needs to line up, good leadership, all of those things. That is the weapon. And then a guy who did not have a lot of negative plays, led the team to a lot of points when he was out there. Go through the weaponry of Cade McNamara, what he brings. The other weapon is the more nuclear. And it might be more of a attack with the ability of J.J. McCarthy, who seemingly can do it all. Look at physically, he appears to me that he can do it all. He can run around like a Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers, and then he can throw it on different platforms off one hand, back. We've seen it all. And then he motors around. And while we haven't seen him run like, I don't know, Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen or something like that, we have seen him. What was it? The throw that Donovan Edwards made in the Big Ten championship game. If you remember that video, you had J.J. McCarthy running all the way down there and escorting Roman Wilson into the end zone, right? So you've got a guy that really has some wheels. And I was looking at the NFL quarterbacks over the weekend, and I was thinking, would I rather, if I was just sitting here, I would take Patrick Mahomes or Justin Herbert. These are the guys. If you could ask me, you can have any quarterback. Those are the two that I was thinking of, and I was like, hey, Mahomes is a freelancer. That's kind of what J.J. McCarthy is. Herbert, well, he is a pocket passer, and at his size can just stand there and whip the ball all over the field as well as anybody in the world, or as well as anybody ever. He also is very quick and can get it done with his legs. So I'm thinking that's what you want. You want a multi-dimensional quarterback who can throw it anywhere, has an incredible arm, and then has got great wheels. But then I started going through all of the quarterbacks on all of the teams, and it's about 50-50 when you look through. Like you just like Jared Goff is not somebody for the Lions that you would say is going to use his legs. Kirk Cousins, if we're just talking about the NFC North, also just a pocket passer, somebody that is just going to stand there and it's going to be on his right arm. Where you start looking, Justin Fields for the Bears, who is their starter, he is somebody that can both throw it and run it. Just going into his second year, so we don't know. I don't know if you put it as a disappointing rookie year for him, but then you just go to the Packers and then you have Aaron Rodgers. So it's split in the NFC North. It's pretty much like that in the NFL. It's choose your weapon. You can have a Fields or an Aaron Rodgers, or you can have a Goff, and you can have a quarterback that can just stand in the pocket and deliver it like the Vikings and Kirk Cousins. And you'll find that it's almost, 16-4 and 16 pocket passers when you go through it. Michigan has, I think, both. They have the guy that can run and get it done with his legs, and then they have the pocket passer. So, and the one's got the experience, as we know, and the other one is, got the higher ceiling. So it's going to be a lot of fun going through the competition. And right now it is open, and it is 50-50, and, both guys are out there, and you would hope that the competition doesn't have the guys pressing and trying to do too much, but that it brings the best that they both have, and it's going to be best for the team. That's what John's talking about. Tolu is talking about Michigan's linebackers being the best in the country. Now, conference, he said, sorry, which is still, it's pretty high praise. I like the Michigan linebackers, starting with the Junior Colson, and then follow quickly behind a guy that I think is one of the most underrated players on the team, and the Kai Hill Green. So there's two right there. I don't know if it's interesting or fun part when you start talking about linebackers is like, well, Michigan's now 3-4. So then you can start saying, well, Mike Morris is actually an outside linebacker, and so is Taylor Upshaw, and so is Jalen Harrell. Harrell, Morris, Colson, and Kai Hill Green, best in the conference. Now, are we just, I'm Tolu? I agree. I'm with you. Although adding that Barrett are underrated and fast. As F. Yeah, they are. AJ thinks that people in the news and media are actually adding up Michigan's players instead of a knee-jerk reaction of losing Ajabo and Hutchinson. They're starting to see Michigan could be dangerous. Yeah, Michigan, you know what? Media, fans, anybody, Michigan, as we sit here today, and we've been talking about them all summer, and we know what they did last year, and we look at the roster right here, it is it's a great time to be a Michigan football fan. It's an exciting time to be a Michigan football fan. Why? Well, it's been a great summer because they won the Big Ten for the first time in a long time, and they are really stacked. It really doesn't matter if you're ranked. People are like preseason rankings don't matter. They matter to say, hey, what people think of you. And true enough, if you win all your games, it doesn't matter. You know where Michigan State's at with 14 in 1997. Michigan was ranked 14th in the preseason, and they were able to make it all the way up to the top. And if they didn't have a coach's ranking or a top 25 ranking, I would put my top 25 out there and rank them. And I had Michigan number 4. And then there would be others who would ask the print media and digital media and anybody else running the pod, put it all together, and then they would have their particular poll. So you're always going to have a poll, and then it's just a gauge. And do you miss a lot? And you say, whoa, that team was really overrated. Yeah, that will happen annually. And then there will be a team that, did not get the respect. How about last year? Where was Michigan last year in the top 25? They weren't there. They were, now you say the pandemic, is fair, that's fair. But Michigan was the first team not to be in the preseason top 25 to make the college football playoff. So it can happen. It is out there. It's a little bit like recruiting. We just like to have a guide. Hey, you're saying this guy is really good. And as rankings, Michigan being 6, that's like being a 5-star. So great expectations for the team this year, and choose your weapon with the quarterbacks, whichever way it is going. I've made my predictions. You can go in past podcasts and look at. I have it exactly how I think it's going to play out, and you can have your opinion as well. You might think McCarthy's going to start by game 1. I don't think that that's going to happen, but I ultimately think he will. Keith is pumped for the season. Keith, you're a football fan, and it's I mentioned that pandemic that got us all kind of a slap in the face and like, whoa. What the hell is going on? But you go back before that and you remember previous August and how you dealt with them getting ready for the football season. I love football. I hate preseason football. It wasn't always like that. I used to take them and be like, it was pretty exciting for a quarter, pretty exciting for a half, pretty exciting for 3 quarters. And then about 5 years ago, preseason football jumped the shark, where it's like, I don't even know if I want to see any of this. Still watch a little bit. And, you would argue back and forth like preseason means nothing. And I used to accept if there's an injury. And I used to always think, that's true. I feel like that. But then I would watch the Lions every year in preseason. And it was only a couple of years ago that they were playing. I think it was the Buccaneers. It was Matt Patricia was the head coach, and the Lions were trying a bunch of ridiculous things. They ran their field goal kicking unit on in a rainstorm and almost killed their kicker. He slipped and everything. And they looked so bad, like they couldn't have looked any worse. It was like 40-0 at the half. They couldn't make any tackles. They were an embarrassment. And so you watch this and you're like, oh, I am going to have to downgrade them. And I can remember a long time ago, the Lions, there was a Monday night game, the third preseason game. Believe me, I'm going to go back to Michigan. I'm just thinking about August and preseason football, and it does get you excited. And it's like talking about practice. For Michigan a little bit with the exhibition games, but the Lions a long time ago, it might have been the 2000, they were wearing these black uniforms and they were playing the Rams on a Monday night. Everybody was excited. I was too. I was thinking, this is a team that can make the playoffs. And they went out against the Rams and got smoked in the first half. They were, again, it was like 40-0. They couldn't walk and chew, tripping over there, and they just looked so bad that I said, I got to downgrade them. And the point of all of these things with the Lions is that the preseason doesn't mean anything except the injuries, except for the Lions, because you can watch them and they can play so bad that you can downgrade them. But we'll see about them. And, a lot of that's neither here or there. I just, started thinking about August and football and just having exhibition game that's being played out there. Heck, people last week knowing that nobody's going to play in that Hall of Fame game we're tuning in. Actually found myself flipping over from baseball. I'm like, okay, I'm at least going to watch the football. It was in a rain delay. And then I watched a little bit of the rain delay coverage. Okay. So last week or so, I put out a hype train. And the hype train included J.J. McCarthy at number 1, Donovan Edwards at number 2, Darius Clemens, the true freshman, at number 3, Will Johnson, the 5-star corner, the most highly rated recruit in the Big Ten. I had Will at 4, and then Mike Morris at 5. We need to add to the hype list. Andrell Anthony. Word out of camp is that Andrell Anthony is a special wideout. And I know last week I sat here and I asked people to get in, and they were giving up the players that they thought were hyped. And there were a few people that said Andrell Anthony. And after this weekend, I got to tell you that I think that the people that were hyping up Andrell Anthony, there was an excellent bit of hype. Trepa, we're going to get to that coming straight up here, talking about the co-offensive coordinator. So you guys are right on top of things here. But Andrell Anthony, and if you're a member of Maize and Blue Review right now, you know what I am talking about. You are getting superlatives coming out of camp on how number 1 looks, how Andrell Anthony is performing out of the gate, how the hype is real for Andrell Anthony. Here he comes. And I'm climbing aboard. All right. Also, it needs to be added to the hype train. And we talked about him a little bit, but I just saw the size and I saw the measurements, and he was talked about in Indianapolis, and I wasn't quite ready to jump on the hype train. Like, okay, the guy measurements are one thing. What's going to happen out on the football field? Well, the reports from practice need us to add to the hype train. Number 78. Kenneth Grant. He is a locomotive. 6'3", 356. That is what he is listed at in the fall guide, MGO Blue fall notes has Kenneth Grant at 6'3", 356. Bruce Feldman asked Harbaugh at Indy, and Harbaugh said that he was running a sub 540, and he was down to 349. So 349, and you're running a 4.9. And I was thinking about true freshmen, playing at defensive tackle or nose guard, space eater, like how strong, can you be, just as a freshman? And size is great, but are you really going to be able to hang in there? There have been some comparisons, and this is early, and this is one that I'm not saying that he's going to be Godzilla. Jordan Davis, if you remember, big 99 from Georgia, who I picked as a Heisman finalist. If I had a ballot, I would have sent the Godzilla's name in. Jordan Davis. Davis is a little bit taller and maybe a little heavier. But if you can get a guy who can run and a guy with the kind of size that KG has, Kenneth Grant, well, you might be looking at a little Godzilla here. And at least as the hype train goes and what is being said about Grant before he plays his first ever game, he's on the hype train. And I'm putting him aboard. Kenneth Grant, hype train edition, along with McCarthy, Edwards, Clemens, Will Johnson, Mike Morris. Now add Andrell Anthony and Kenneth Grant. We got into all of the reasons why those five guys are on the hype train. The captain's all aboard. Antoine's all aboard with the captain. The punters indicating that Jordan Davis took plays off. That's why he wasn't considered. Listed at 6'6", 340, ran a 4.78 40. Yeah, he did. That was the knock on Jordan Davis. A knock that he is a two-down player. I don't think you need to put Kenneth Grant in as a three-down player. And, the part about taking plays off, like you said it, and that is what people said about him. But also Georgia, until the Alabama game. And remember, that was the SEC championship game. There was nobody in the country. The Georgia defense was putting up a minuscule points per game. They had what looked to be, and this is always, you gotta wait. Sometimes you proclaim things, and then the Georgia defense was proclaimed as a generational defense, punters. And Kenneth Grant was the leader in. And remember, that was right around the time that you're putting in your finalist. And so from what I saw with Grant, and they were loaded all over that defense and everything else. And hell, if he was taking so many plays off, he was still in the first half of the first round of the NFL draft. Godzilla, I think, is for real, taking plays off or not. Keith likes Anthony too, but he saw him only doing a couple things. He got a little sprinkling in that Northwestern game, and then he arrived in that Michigan State game. Of course, he's the pride of Lansing. Andrell Anthony from Lansing, went to Michigan, had the 93-yard touchdown against the Spartans. Went up and they were targeted. He was the number one wide receiver. You could see it. So one thing about the college football, and a lot of people want true freshmen right off the bat to be out there and be great. And it happens sometimes. I can remind people that in 1995, my first year covering Michigan, and Michigan had Charles Woodson didn't start against Virginia. Everybody's like, what's wrong with Woodson? Come on. Woodson wasn't the best freshman in the first 6 games of the season. It was a defensive end named David Bowens David Bowens was like, man, Michigan's got a great freshman in David Bowens. Now, by the end of the year, Woodson was getting more time, and Woodson had 2 picks in that Ohio State game, and then told Terry Glenn that he shot his mouth off and talked a little bit too much. And, Charles arrived. And, the rest is kind of history there. But it's also a good reminder that just because you don't jump out in game 1 and it takes you a little while, some guys redshirt even as freshmen, and that's not always a bad thing. You know what I mean? So it got banged up a little bit, Antoine saying. All right, let's get to a lot of people making the point about the offensive coordinators. Again, we're talking practice here. Matt Weiss indicated that Khalil Mullings at 6'2" and 232 pounds, that's his listed weight on MGO Blue on the fall roster, that Mullings, who we saw in the spring, but was only listed at linebacker on that fall roster, Weiss did indicate that Mullings is splitting time, playing both sides of the ball. So he is still at running back and linebacker. And, when you ask me my feelings for a two-way player, I'm not torn and I'm not against guys wanting to be slashes and play different positions and then different sides of the ball. But I also think it takes a rare player. And Michigan may be doing too much of this. Like, it's all good until you, what was the fullback, the bench that Michigan had. And, he was a load at fullback, and Harbaugh likes the big fullbacks. And, you get him at a defensive tackle, and then you're going to have him at fullback, and he's back at and then you get him in a game against Wisconsin when you're on the road and you cross the 50 and you get him the ball and the bench fumbles. And the game was over after that. I'm saying you got to be careful with guys that handle the ball and thinking about putting them all over the field. It's my word of advice. Harbaugh, maybe, he's got a lot of film to review. He's got a lot. It's going to be one of the questions if I get a chance to talk with somebody. What's the level of concern that you guys are? Nobody else in the history of college football. It's a very small amount of players. Woodson is one of them. He was able to do it. You got Hines Ward. We can list the guys that played both offense and defense, but it's not a long list. What makes Harbaugh, because now they got Sandra still, he's doing it. He's a two-way. Khalil Mullings is a two-way player. I understand A.J. Henning is a wide receiver and then putting him in the backfield because, he's excellent with the ball in his hands. And there is something about some of these wide receivers running out of the backfield. We see it with Cordell Patterson with the Falcons. Obviously, Deebo Samuel, it creates confusion for the defense. We've noticed that even in the playoffs last year with Deebo. But I'm a little concerned about the amount of guys that are playing both sides of the ball. If it was a situation where, you had a big guy that wanted to be defensive tackle, and then you thought, well, maybe in a jumbo package, you'd put him in as an extra offensive lineman, or even you wanted to line him up in the backfield as a fullback. You do see some teams that I would be against giving the big guy a carry, especially in a big spot. I know, sometimes guys work really hard. Mention Jordan Davis. I think he got a carry. And, you keep those guys engaged. But you got to be careful there. And I'm sure that's what Harbaugh, hey, they've earned it. They're smart. They'll go into all the meetings. They put in the extra time. But it's still, in the history of the game, there are not many players that are able to do it. And so why are these guys so super special that you got them playing two ways? A word of caution for the Michigan football staff coming from me. All right, Matt Weiss on J.J. McCarthy was alluded to a couple times that, that he's basically saying that he's going to, start without saying it. Here's what he said, quote, "We're just going to continue to develop him, and he'll be playing for us at some point. It's just a question of when." So, if you're a big McCarthy should be starting game one guy, you're like, no, McCarthy's just going to take over in practice. They see that he's Potential is limitless. His ceiling is as high as any quarterback in the country, certainly higher than Cade's, nothing against him. And that McCarthy should be the guy for Michigan this year. I mean, you can do that if you're like just all got eyes for JJ. And look, there's nothing wrong with that. I got some eyes for McCarthy myself. I understand that thinking. The other side, the people like, hey, don't count Cade out. I wouldn't count Cade out either. I still think that he'll be the starter on September the 3rd. Here's the decoder. This is a way of saying that, yeah, McCarthy could still be the quarterback. He could be starting September the 3rd. JJ McCarthy could be the starter for the entire year. He could take every snap. Cade could also be the starter, and he could play the majority of the snaps, the entire thing. This is the page 1 of the coaching manual of Coach Speak. Yeah, he'll be playing for us at some point. He's already played. So it's just a question of when. Yeah, well, you could say, you could follow up. And if I was at that news conference, would I have followed up and said, hey, technically, Coach, both of these guys have 2 years left. So what if Cade beats him out this year and plays the majority of snaps? And then what if Cade wanted to stay around? Would you still say it's just a question of when? Could you expand on that a little bit? I don't know. That's getting into because I think everybody realizes at some point one of these guys is going to win the job, and then the other one's likely going to go play quarterback somewhere else. Leave it to somebody to fire their hand up and ask that question, and maybe they'll wait till Harbaugh is around. And I don't mind, if there's somebody in the media who wanted to keep peppering them on the quarterbacks. I read everything that Matt Weiss had to say. I think lining up more quarterback questions would have been fine for him. I even think that question that I had there for him. Sherrone Moore also. There's JJ. We're talking about practice. I guess I didn't put what Sherrone Moore had to say, so I'll paraphrase it. Sherrone Moore was asked about play calling, and he called it collaborative. And he said that they've been working things through, and they got a nice system. And again, this will be paraphrasing, so if I miss exactly how he said it, and it's something that you think is the essence of what he said that I'm missing, you could put that message up there. But I think I have the gist of it that Sherrone was talking about, and Matt Weiss was as well, that this is a collaboration, that this is a team effort. Now, that's all fine to say. Collaborative. But when it gets down to making the calls in the game, you need to have one guy making the calls. Now, all week long, Sherrone and Matt Weiss can be in there and say, hey, this is what we like here, this is what we like there, here's the sheet, this is what we think on fourth down, this is what we think in short yardage situations, this is how many we want to script, this is how we want to come out, this is who we want to get to the ball, to all these different things. This is how we want to attack. But when it comes down to calling the plays, Matt Weiss is going to be up in the booth, and Sherrone Moore is going to be, I believe, down on the field. And it's great to have that communication between the two, because Sherrone could say, hey, I really think we ought to hit him back off of this counter. I can see it, and Weiss might, take his recommendation there and go with the 2 wide double X spider when it's suggested. But you need to have one guy calling the plays. If there's one thing, and we all play video games and we all make the calls and everything else, and it's got a little bit, of familiarity what these guys do. But I've always felt whoever that guy is calling the plays, it is a real rhythm. It is not something that you just look at that Denny's menu and you're going with the moons over my hammy, and then you're following it up with the surf and turf. It doesn't work like that. You got to have a real feel. And there's nobody that had a more of a masterpiece on the headset than Josh Gaddis last year against Ohio State. He had the feel. He knew right when to throw this play, that play. It was just a thing of beauty by Gaddis. What can mess up a rhythm of a play caller is having 2 play callers. So I'm against that. Now, I know Harbaugh, when it gets down to, let's say they're, they're on their own 40 and it's a 4th and 2. And Matt Weiss is like, all right, let's punt. Well, and he hears in the headset, let's go for it. Oh, that's Jim Harbaugh. Like, I don't think Sherrone Moore should have the capabilities of let's go for it. Let's put in the Buffalo package and let's run for it on 4th and 2 with Donovan Edwards over the right side. But Harbaugh, he can do that. Just like you get down to a 4th and goal situation from the 3 and everybody wants you to go for it. And Weiss is like, let's take the points. And Harbaugh's like, we're going to go for it. Okay. So Harbaugh can do a little bit of that. Maybe Harbaugh will give him a suggestion, but you need one voice and letting those guys make the call. Let's get to some of the feedback. Blue, Dove, regarding Weiss's remarks, yes. When? And did he mean JJ starts without saying it? No. Those were just ways to, parse your words. Those guys are trying to say something without saying anything. And for Sherrone, if you went through it, the reason I didn't put much in, and there's nothing against it, I like Sherrone Moore as a coach, as a recruiter, all of it. But, Sherrone Moore, it was a classic, and he is a coach. So it's okay to just throw out a bunch of coach speak. Hey, coach, you're going to do this? Maybe. We'll see. There was a lot of that from Sherrone Moore. The guys are working, out there, and that's all fine. When you're a coach, you can roll out coach speak. And, if there's something a little bit that you want to pull out. Now, there's some people that, they want to, hear all that. And, there's radio shows right around Ann Arbor who they can't talk for more than 5 minutes. So they'll just roll out those tapes and let you hear all that coach speak. So you can hear all that. But there was nothing else going on over there. Malachi saying it'll probably be Harbaugh. John saying that I'm giving Gaddis too much credit. Well, I can tell you this, John, you and I would say 95% of the Michigan fans agree with you. Right now, Gaddis, from some of the stuff that he has said since he has bolted, is persona non grata around here. He's bad talking the Wolverines and, everything. So I get where you're coming from there, but I thought that he called a masterpiece. I'm not the, biggest Gaddis guy in the world, but, he called a masterpiece last year against the Buckeyes, and I will give him credit for that. Tolu saying way too much credit. It was the O-line and Haskins that beat OSU. The flea flickers were cute. People are this is what you call ganging up on me, which I'm all right with. Exactly. Josh Gaddis wasn't all that. He had to ditch his own playbook and start running some of the Harbaugh plays out of the spread. The speed and space will never work for Michigan. Three people against 0 450 right now, if we're all keeping track. It's okay. I'm getting beat today. Coach speak. That's what I meant. Yeah, a lot of coach speak. And Antoine indicating that Phil Steele has Michigan as the number 1 offensive line in the nation. I'm sorry, that is Ferris. Yeah, Ferris, you're right. And you bring in Oluwatimi, who was the, on that Remington Award list as one of the top 3 centers and graded out as the best running center by Pro Football Focus. And you put him in there. And you did have Andrew Vastardis, who was a 2-year starter there, 2-year captain at center. But Oluwatimi, I think you could make a case, and I'll make the case that he can do as good or a better job. I think that's pretty reasonable and safe. Not saying that he's going to do a way better job, and I think he's going to do a better job. Certainly as good as Vastardis, who was pretty good. And it was a hell of a Michigan player. Out there at right tackle, I think when you look at Trente Jones, who came in on those Buffalo packages last year and didn't have his nameplate on there because they put that 80 on his back. And this has been one of those indications where, you notice how they don't say, well, they're really battling. Even Sherrone Moore, I'll give Sherrone Moore, he did not use the coach speak because it was like, is Trente the guy? And he was like, Trente's the guy. Paraphrasing. They still like Carson Barnhart. Swing tackles, started 4 spots on the offensive line. It's great to have a swing tackle and a guy that's played inside and outside like Barnhart. He could, in a pinch, could be in there, and you might not lose anything. Now, Trente Jones is a mauler. That's why Michigan had the number 1 offensive line last year, and Michigan's offensive line could be better this year. So that's the good stuff. Okay, before we show you a video, let's take some more of the feedback. Charles looking good in that hat and suit. He's just hopping on here. Rank Michigan's position groups. Asking me to rank Michigan's position groups. I will start with that offensive line at number 1. Charles, I will, what is Michigan's second best position group? I think it's wide receivers. With the additions now of Darius Clemens as a freshman, not even to mention Marion Walker and Tyler Morris. And I don't know about those guys yet. I do know about Clemens from what I saw. I watched him running routes before the spring game. I was locked in on him. Like, hey, reminds me a lot of Braylon Edwards. And then he went out and it looked like Braylon Edwards catching that touchdown, catching the back half of the football. And then you add in Ronnie Bell to Cornelius Johnson and Andrew Anthony, who I'm on the hype train with, and Roman Wilson, who I think is going to lead Michigan in receiving touchdowns. I mean, so that's number 2. Number 3, do I want to put a defensive group? What's Michigan's best defensive group? That's going to be the linebackers. But do I think I'll go with running backs? If you look, I was doing this myself, ranking the running backs. I don't think Blake Corum is the top running back in the country, but I think he's one of the top 5. And I think that Donovan Edwards could be better than Blake Corum. I think that Michigan's got 2 of the top 10 running backs in the country. I'll put the running backs as number 3. So where are we at? Well, the quarterback position is stout. I'll put them 4. I'll put, is that all the, well, I like the tight ends too. How about all 5 positions? There you go. I'll go tight ends behind running backs, and then I'll go linebackers. I will go, because Mozzie is so good, I'll go with the defensive tackles. Where do I put defensive ends? There's a question mark in there. Defensive ends and also the defensive backfield. Well, I like a lot of the personnel there. Unproven, I will put defensive ends, which a lot of players in there to pick from. Jalen Harrell being one of them. The defensive backfield, safety, I feel they got both of their corners back, so maybe I should bump those corners up a little bit. Did I do it? Now that I do that, I want to put the defensive line behind the secondary, if I can put the entire group of defensive backs there, because Michigan has Njimon Green and DJ Turner, two returning starting corners. And then if you add Rod Moore, who started a few games in there for Michigan, and heck, RJ Moten as well has got a handful of starts. Maybe I'm sleeping a little bit on that defensive backfield for Michigan. Okay. That was a long answer. We get some other people ranking them. Offensive line, defensive line, quarterback, wide receiver, tight end, defensive back, linebacker. Antoine says, don't forget Zeke Berry. He'll be wearing number 10 as a safety. I'm not forgetting about him. Defensive end, we should say defensive line. The captain has it down as offensive line, running back, quarterback. Where are you putting tight ends in there? I mean, Michigan's got some pretty good tight ends. You're putting wide receiver as 4. I don't know about that. What's up, bro? pretty cool to see the depth on this Michigan teams. Reminds me of the 49er Harbaugh teams that competed yearly for the Super Bowl. Hey, I think people should be excited about this year's Michigan team. I think the hype train for this Wolverine team, ranked 6th in the country, the defending Big Ten champs. Looking at the possibilities that the offense to go with the schedule here, this is a throwback to a time in Michigan football history where it was almost like this every year. From 1970 to 2007, this is mostly how it felt. Now, Michigan didn't win the Big Ten in every single one of those years, but they won a lot of Big Ten championships. And if they didn't win the Big Ten, you always felt like they were still just a play or two, or at least a handful of plays away where you could talk about them going undefeated. And then from 2008, really to, 2014, till Harbaugh took over. The Rodriguez and Hoke years, save a year in there maybe, that, it was a big step back. It didn't feel like Michigan was a handful of plays away. It feels like that this year is going to come down to a handful of plays, and that Michigan could make the college football playoff again with the talent that they have on both sides of the ball and where they're at with their coaches. Now, last year, the plays, if you go and we wanted to look at them, the Eric All play, they don't make that play, a 47-yard touchdown. I'm not sure they win that game. The Penn State game. There wasn't just one play against Ohio State. That was the great thing about that game. It was a leaning. It was a constant pressure. It was winning on both sides of the ball, which was great. Hawkins makes the big play against Nebraska. Hawkins makes the play against Nebraska. All makes the play against Penn State. I mean, there's 2 plays. You could be talking about 2 losses. Now I know it cuts both ways because you could go to that Michigan State game and pull a handful of plays out in that game. And, you could talk about winning that one. Maybe just one if you go to it. Jadkins asking a question. Who's the dark horse on Michigan's team? You want a dark horse on the Michigan team? I like Roman Wilson as the dark horse. I think Roman Wilson is going to lead this outstanding wide receiver group in touchdowns. Yeah, I think he's going to snag 7 scores. I'll put Roman Wilson down as the dark horse. Speaking of Roman Wilson, let's see if I can get to him. I have a video that I want to show you of Roman Wilson. Let me get to that. It's going to take me just 1 second. You can load up some of your comments here. Let's see. Rayshawn Benny is who Antoine is talking about. If you can read what he has to say there. He's asking who's the guy that Michigan flipped. That was Rayshawn Benny. The whole recruiting cycle, Rayshawn Benny looked like he was going to go to Michigan State. And then it was like Michigan State. And then he didn't sign with them in the early signing period. And then he flipped to Michigan. What we are watching on the screen currently, and I'm going to say that I've watched this now close to 100 times. J.J. McCarthy takes the ball. This is from practice from over the weekend. Looks down the sideline, throws this. What did Gruden call this? The turkey hole. Throws this into the turkey hole, and then Roman Wilson, perfectly placed throw, great air under the ball, dropped right into the bucket, into the receiver's hands, who it could bobble it even with 2 defensive players there. This is just a thing of beauty. Now, Wilson's lined up on the far left, And, he's just running down the sideline here. There's a couple things. This is practice. Remember, I'm good at keeping things in perspective. There's no rush on JJ McCarthy. Like he's just taking the snap. He doesn't have to worry about anything. And he doesn't look around to any other read or anything else. As he takes the snap, no, it booted me out. As he takes the snap, he is locked down to Roman Wilson, and he just cranks this one down here. And is it advisable to throw? Like the defensive back, Sandra still in this case, is right on him. And he still is able to just lay it in there. Yeah, we understand. So what I am saying is like, well, I hand him the job. I'm not saying that. Is it a beautiful pass? Yes, I think we can say that. And we say that JJ McCarthy just really throws a very catchable ball, and it's got a real gun to him. And like you just look, he's got the look. Some guys, you just watch him throw the football, and you're just like, yeah, this guy really has the look. And that is what JJ McCarthy has. I don't know how many times you guys have watched this, but it's McCarthy. Little 3-step drop. Nice and easy. Nice and easy. Now, if we had never seen him make another throw, you'd say, oh, wait, we got to wait for some game. Well, we've seen him in games. He makes some throws like this. And again, it's just choose your weapon. But we'll watch it just one more time. You just look at this little flip. Not a lot of strain there. When you see just a nice, easy, like when you're talking about the mechanics, I said one time, but I'm going to watch it one more time. When you just watch the delivery, this is just a quick release. This is just a flip. This is not putting a lot of strain. It looks a little bit like, you guys aren't old enough. But there was a quarterback that played for Pittsburgh and then got drafted by the Dolphins. He's got a little bit of Marino. He's just standing back there and throwing this out there like Dan Marino back in the day. Kind of just, he's just flipping it effortlessly. Marino-esque for Roman Wilson, the dark horse for the Michigan football team. Blue Vaughn had seen it. He's seen other JJ practice videos. He hasn't seen Cade practice videos. He's been looking for something interesting. Yeah, I would. Blue Vaughn, this would be in the situation where I would not read anything into that. Malachi talking about him staring down Roman. Signs that the quarterbacks are picking up on Sandro still means he's getting burnt. Maybe. Tolo thinks Donovan Edwards at wide receiver. Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, if he's catching the ball out of the backfield, there's a lot of things you can do with A.J. Henning and Donovan Edwards that if I'm Matt Weiss and if I'm Sherrone Moore, when they talk about the collaboration and everything, I think it's these guys just sitting around, even in the practice meetings, even afterwards, they're just sitting around, they got their feet up on the desk, and it's like, who wants to go up and draw the next thing up? Because they got a lot of different things. I was going to say we because I was acting like I was Matt Weiss. I could take that pen, that dry erase, and I could start drawing up a lot of things that they can do. Now, remember, you got to be careful with how you do things. I'll go back to Josh Gaddis in his first year as offensive coordinator, speed and space, and it was 2019. And I was talking about Michigan's offense as one of the classic Michigan offenses. And the reason I was saying that is that in 2019, Michigan looked like, and they did have on paper, their best offensive line in a decade. They had, when you looked at their wide receiving group that they put out there, the best that they had in years. They, were going with Zach Charbonnet, but all indications, he was highly rated and that he was going to be pretty good. And good tight ends, right down the board. Returning quarterback in Shea Patterson. And they had Dylan McCaffrey, and this is the part that I wanted to get to. Gaddis, there's no doubt, and what they were doing in 2019 in fall practice is they wanted both quarterbacks out on the field in a lot of situations. They wanted McCaffrey out there because McCaffrey was so good running the ball. I think they had an idea. Let's get McCaffrey on a lot of reverses. Let's put McCaffrey, give him the ball, throw it back to Shea. Let's have these two handling the ball and handing it back and forth to each other on 2-point conversions. Let's get these guys out here and let's have them in short yardage situations really show the other teams a bunch of things that we can do. And they were probably sitting there. Gaddis was up on that dry board and probably like, look at this. This is crazy. But you know what happened? You could even see it in that first game. They came out rusty and clunky, and their confidence was shot. First thing, the ball slipped out of McCaffrey's hands like he had it was like soap in the bathtub. Next thing you know, Patterson held on to it for a second. It went off his shoulder blade. Next thing you know, the ball was on the ground. It set the tone. Patterson got hurt, I think, in the first play of that game as well, and it kind of shot the offense. But you know what else had him shot is that they had worked on that so much. Let's hand the call. I'll call it cute now, and great drawing things up on the race board sound great until you go out there and then these guys can't handle the ball. It set the tone for that offense. If you remember, 2019, what held them back? Well, they fumbled the ball. Nobody can hang on to it. And it stayed with them for like half of the season. It was a problem, big problem. They almost lost the freaking Army game because of it. They say that's all on Josh Gaddis. They were in practice, man. They're handling it. Look at these guys. They got ball security. That's why everything's great until you put the ball on the ground. Okay, let's get to the last. I don't know why that's making me laugh. I don't like the ball being on the ground. Blue Dove saying JJ can throw and complete the long passes. I don't want Michigan to not go for it in games. Fair. It's funny how sorry guys, I'm still just waking up now. Yeah, hey, no problem. T.O. saying JJ has excellent mid-range game, arm strength to hit the out routes, splitting the defenders across the field. Yeah, I'm with you on that. And we'll get two more in here. DJ saying, not great defense, better offense. Nice back shoulder throw, post corner, a touch. Is that Morant, 31? He transferred, even if he stays. No, that is not Morant at 31. You see 20s, Mullings. You got Sandra still in there. There's a 31. Do I have the roster? I do have a roster around here. Let's see who 31 is on the roster. That is William McBride, a running back out of Seaholm. Does that look like William, a running back? Or did somebody else wear 31? I can scan. No, you know who that is? Now that I look, this is the spring roster. If you have the fall roster, you will notice on the fall roster that Jalen Perry, who was formerly, would you rather watch this? Let's take a vote. This, me talking here, or this? I'm going to vote for this. Jalen Perry wore number 16. He changed it to number 31. So there it is. That's not the walk-on running back from Seaholm. That is Jalen Perry, corner. So you got a backup corner. You got Sanders still two-way player. And I think Rod Moore is in there as well, which is a good sign. Let's see if 19 is in there. Because 19, remember, he was held out of spring. I heard all guys were good to go. Yeah, there's 19. That's Rod Moore. Rod Moore, Mike Sanders still. Good stuff. All right, and the final bit of feedback comes from none other than Antoine, who says, it's an NFL pass with a high difficulty. I don't expect them to go for that type of pass, nor do I necessarily want him to try. It's nice to know that he can because Cade left easier passes on the field. At times, I thought Cade, even going to the Big Ten championship game against Iowa, Cade started, he made some throws that he did not make earlier in the year. And then, nothing really worked against Georgia. But it's going to be fun. It is fun. And let's just remind everybody, we did talk about practice. There's a good look at JJ. You want to know what Michigan's next move is? You should be joining up the Maize and Blue Review today. Go to michigan.rivals.com. I really did just scratch the surface here. All of what we talked about today, this is ongoing Wolverine Den. You just get in there. You want to know what's going on with recruiting up to the second? These guys are on it. Michigan.rivals.com. I'm on the posting board, saying all kinds of responding to the posts, making threads up myself. It's good, clean fun. We'll see you there. We'll be back here tomorrow at 1 o'clock talking the latest about the Wolverines, the 6th ranked Michigan Wolverines as they continue to get ready for September the 3rd. Thanks for all of the feedback. If you get a chance, follow the podcast. Follow us on YouTube, do the rating, and also leave a review. All of those things help us immensely. And you know what? They're free for you. So if you do that, give you the big thumbs up. Till tomorrow, everybody have a great day. Thanks for joining us. See you then. Bye.